All right, guys, TacticalRab here back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And welcome to episode 11 of the Breaking Point podcast. We are back again after another crazy week of Call of Duty action. Can't believe what's going on right now. Every single week we have an episode, and I'm like, okay, this is a banger. There's a lot to discuss. This week, that is certainly the case in spades. Unbelievable set of matches here in the Predi for week 2 of stage 2 of the CDL. Also, a massive patch update just dropped a couple of hours ago from when we're recording this. So, plenty to get into today. Once again, joined by Austin and Lionman. How you doing, Austin? Once again, phenomenal week for FaZe in the league. There's certainly some interesting matchups to talk about here that we'll get into in the coming minutes. But yeah, how are you doing, boys?
Doing good. Just another week. Just another week of grinding.
Absolutely marvelous.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. Check us out on Spotify, all the good stuff. Thanks for 2,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Yeah, leave a like on the video, all that good stuff. Let's get into it. So, no time to waste. Matches for this week, we'll kind of go through it like team by team. Kind of wanted to start on the Thursday. So Dallas-Paris was a game, and then, of course, Chicago-Minnesota was a game. And that was an interesting one. So I guess firstly, let's talk about this Dallas team real quick. So they beat Paris 3-1. Then they go on to play Minnesota, and of course, Minnesota had a wonderful week for them, but they lose that series to Minnesota 3-2. And really the storyline is, I thought there was a really interesting statistic that Round 11 Stats came out with. And he said that they're 9-3 in Search and Destroy this season against any team that isn't FaZe and Rocker. But against FaZe and Rocker, they're 0-8, if not even like worse, something like 0-9. So they can't win a Search against FaZe. Of course, they, it's tough to play FaZe when you have to play them in the Grand Finals and Winners Finals, but also against Rocker. Right, that's the real interesting one to me, because Dallas on paper should be such a good search team, Austin. But yeah, we're looking at them here and they're really struggling in it. And it's such a crucial map to be able to win against something like Minnesota. Like if you're taking 2 respawns, 2 hard points off Minnesota, if you're a team like Dallas, you've got to close out that series. But it happens once again, they lose 2 searches here, and not something I expected. And honestly, it makes that group even more chaotic, as we're going to discuss in a second.
Yeah, I mean, their S&D should be like one of the best when you think about it from last year. And this year, it's just not the same team. And a lot of people I'm reading that like they think that they don't have the same like strategies, or they're not coming up with as creative plays. And I just think it's their 4 players is like each one of them has a good map but aren't consistent. So like you see Crim6 drop like 15 on Express one time around, and the next time around I think he had 2 or 3. Like it was really off. I think it was against Paris. So they're very inconsistent. I'm looking at it right now. Hook in S&D so far this stage, it has a 0.71. That's very uncharacteristic of him. Illy has a 0.78. Shotzi with a 0.81. They're really bad in opening duels. They're really bad in consistency. So I think it's just a lot of things are coming together. And I also think their map pool isn't great on S&D. So a lot of teams are able to veto their good map and put them on a map that they're really uncomfortable on. And so far in Express, they haven't really looked good on that either. So it's just basically a lot of things adding into one.
Yeah, when you look at those players, you expect so much more in S&D, especially from like in my experience watching. Like Illy, before he joined the league, he was considered like the best S&D player outside of the league. And so for him and like that team to not be able to really get anything going doesn't make sense to me. Do you think it's anything to do with map pools, or like certain maps that just don't suit them, or the 4v4 format, or what?
I mean, it's a bunch of things. So like to start off, like when you look at their opening duels, so that first fight in the round, Hook and Shotzi combined right now are 7-22. So they've only gotten the first blood 7 times, and been blooded 22 times. Like those are 2 of your best players, like most people would argue. And if you are constantly fighting 4v3 and you're losing one of your best players in the early round, you're not going to win. And right now, this split, they're 0-1 on Moscow against Minnesota, and they've played Express 3 times, and they're only 1-2 on it, and their only win is against Seattle. So I don't know. I just don't think their map pool is really strong. They're obviously not confident in raid because they've vetoed that, I think, in 3 of their series. So they don't have raid. A lot of teams don't like checkmate, so they get checkmate out right away. So the 3 maps you're left with are Miami, Moscow, and Express, which is why you're seeing a lot of Express for their series. So almost everyone is pretty good at Moscow. Like everyone has a pretty good grasp on that. So you're not finding the edge there. Miami, they're not good at. and then Express, you're finding out that they're kind of weaker at it. So it's I think it has a lot to do with the map pool and a lot to do with those early fights just aren't going their way.
For sure. Last year their like main strength was that they always got the bomb down straight away. Shotzi was always just straight on the bomb, get it down. Yeah, he'd get first blooded, but they'd have bomb down, and so it was just perfect for them to just be able to hold that. So this year, I feel like they're having more trouble trying to get the bomb down, and so Shotzi is getting first blooded a lot, trying to get to the bomb, and it's so they're losing all these fights. Most rounds are like 3v4 against them, so yeah, struggling. I think a whole new reset for the game mode might actually be the best thing for them.
Yeah, that stat you said with like Hugo and Shotzi 7-22, like what is happening there, lads? That's really strange. I think Dallas are a weird team in the sense that during the group play, they always are a little bit shaky. Like Krim even did the tweet when he was discussing like, I have a hard time really turning up in group play. Like I need the pressure on, like when something really matters. And they kind of did that in stage 1 in a sense. Like they also lost 3-2 to Minnesota. They make it out still first seed in their group. And then at the major, they kind of look better, but they had to play FaZe, which is obviously tough. But Dallas not exactly looking spectacular. Certainly a team I expect to improve. If they can get their search down, like immediately that they become such a scary squad again. But right now, like, even the series against Paris, I was like, it's not exactly incredibly clear-cut that Dallas were going to win. They did take it, but it wasn't exactly super clear-cut. As well, another team, let's talk about OpTic then. I suppose we might as well dive into it now because Dallas and OpTic, two teams right behind FaZe. You would have thought top 3 teams in the game coming in right here. That is probably not how you'd be putting your power rankings together at the end of this week because the first series they play Minnesota, right? And first of all, Minnesota, Stanley comes in. The change that we talked about last time, certainly we thought that Stanley coming in was the right move. Whether the player, going out was the right move or not, that was the question mark. But it seemed to work out phenomenally for these guys. Like they looked really, really good this week. Minnesota versus Chicago, especially. I mean, Stanley had a 1.52 or whatever the KD was. Like he took over the hard point. He went 13-4 in the surge. Never really seen a debut like this from a guy. I mean, unbelievable, especially to do it up against OpTic Chicago, a team like that. And on OpTic side, you're like, all right, did they just come into this series super complacent? What's going on here? They then, of course, they could get completely bodied in map number 1. They really struggled to show any composure, any fight back. That's really what I think this team is lacking because not only do they not fail to clutch up, but when they then fail to clutch up, they then lose composure for the future maps, which is really affecting them. And especially against the Florida series really was the dagger. I mean, not necessarily the dagger. They can turn it around. But like against Minnesota, it's like, okay, whatever. We got completely thrown off our game. We didn't expect it. Stanley to come up this strong. He has a crazy good series, whatever. The Florida series was like round 11. Why are you over peaking? Why are we getting 2v3'd with bomb down on a defense? And then once you lose that, and of course Awakening turns up game 1, but once you lose that, it just felt to me like this series is just done because OpTic just don't have that clutch factor right now. Super strange. And then in the control, I mean, mistakes on the offense, failing to, stack the B point when they had the chance to get some ticks on it. Just honestly, catalog of errors, right? And they did some tweets line about how, just small mistakes adding up and such, but that's the difference at this level, right? And a team like Florida, who got 3-1 by Seattle last week, to come out and 3-0 them, I don't even know what to say anymore. Like, what do you even do to fix this?
Yeah, the first series against against Minnesota was ridiculous because they came out. That was their first game of the week, yeah. Like Standy's first game ever, and he 82-point clubbed Chicago on Raid Hardpoint, which is one of their best maps, which is ridiculous. And then the rest of the series just wasn't even close. It was a triple raid, and they just got smoked. And then you look at their second series against Florida. That was like quite a close series, like considering even though they lost 3-0. But just they didn't have that clutch, what you were saying before. They don't have that extra fire to kind of push for that map win. But I don't really have much to say because I'm, since birth, almost like an OpTic fan. I'm wearing my green as well against the green screen. Like I'm trying to rep them, but for some reason they're not giving it to me back, which is it's sad. It's hard to watch because they do have the biggest fan base in COD, and you know they're just getting completely torched by their fans every time they lose.
Man, the replies.
Oh, don't even get me started, mate. Like this, the fact that they didn't even win a map this weekend reminded me of playoffs and Black Ops 4, like that low point. And so I think they're probably going to come back next week and be a different team, but man, they really need some inspiration from somewhere. Austin?
It just looks like they're so sad. Like, I know they care, and I know they're actually
That's quite true, actually.
They just, like, they lose map one, and you look at their cams, and everyone's just like...
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying, man. They just don't, like, they don't have the ice.
It just looks like they just lose composure, like, right away. And
it's like New York, that never happens. New York can lose. They can go down 5-1, and the vibes are still there. The positivity's still there. It seems like OpTic have given up when they lose a close map. They don't have an ASIM. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's just tough. I mean, you look at it right now, and everyone's saying, like what's going wrong? It's the little things. I mean, Scump has the 8th worst KD in the entire league for this stage. He has a .88. Dashy's not much better. He's 40th in the league right now in KD with a .9, and that's with an AR flex. So like you can't have two of your stars absolutely getting bodied. It just comes. I think their map pool. I think they got complacent, and they assumed that their control is always going to be there for them. And a lot of teams are actually catching up. With the XM4 gone, offense has gotten a lot easier. So if you aren't putting in the work consistently to keep improving and finding weaknesses in your strategies, teams are going to catch up on you. So I think it was just a little bit of complacency, a little bit of this. I don't know if it's like too much pressure on them and they're losing composure every time they lose, or if they're thinking so far down on these teams, like they're thinking they should be walking over them, and then they lose, and like I don't know. But I see a lot of people blaming Sender, which I think is completely wrong. I think I don't care if you have the best coach in the league. If you aren't willing to learn and improve and working with your coach to keep getting better, he can be sitting there telling you how to win every single game. If you don't take that knowledge and put it into your gameplay, it doesn't matter what he's saying to you. He's not playing with a controller. So like I don't understand the Sender blame. I feel like you have a 4 down, you're not stacking the point against Florida. That's not Troy's fault. That's not Troy. Troy isn't picking up the controller and telling you, stack on the point. Like that, by this point in the game, like, I understand what they were going for, but you also should have played it more safe instead of this high risk, high reward. Like they tried slaying out one more wave, and if they got that wave, they would have won. But it's like, stack the point, get your 2 ticks, then play a little bit more aggro. Like, I don't know. So I really don't agree with the Troy stuff, just because I've been in their streams and I see like Troy speaking to them, and a lot of the times this is like Dylan sitting there just like drinking it in, and then I don't hear the communication back, or I don't hear like what if we tried this? Like you don't hear it, so I don't know. I just feel like the team just needs to be rejuvenated. Like they just need to find a spark to get them back into the mojo. I feel like they just lost their way, and they just need like one win to get them back on track.
For sure, OpTic's always been that team that rides a wave of momentum and can always, like, out of nowhere, if they get a series win, just come back and be the team they were, which was case in point when I said before about COD Champs 2019, losing playoffs, coming back, and then being like a force of champs again. It just takes that one big series. But, when you said about Sender, I've noticed that as well. It's like Envoy's the only one who really takes in the information, and the others kind of don't really feel it. And you can see, like, when they talk about Sender, they kind of roast him a little bit, but I feel like it's all love, but they don't respect him. They don't quite respect him in the way that I think he deserves, or the information that he's giving is needed. Like, they need that information, they need to take it in, but a lot of the small mistakes seem to be coming from that ignorance almost. But
that's the major reason why, like, I would always heavily, strongly advise not streaming scrims.
I was just about to say
the environment from when you're streaming and when you're not streaming is completely different. We, like, every map that we play, there's like an open dialogue conversation right after you're speaking about what can we improve, what do we do right. Okay, now next map. What are our objectives this map? Where even if our guys lose like 180 to 250, as long as we hit the objectives that we were going for, like breaking P2, doing it consistently, having consistent comms, if that. That conversation doesn't happen when you're streaming. You're always afraid of giving too much information away, or you're thanking your subs, or your focus isn't 100% on practice. Like, I understand why OpTic streams, because like they get so many views. They are literally the reason why people get content during the week, but like that is a clear negative. And if you aren't putting in, ridiculous amount of VOD work after you're done streaming, it hurts you. So I just think they just need to find that balance, the correct balance between streaming and communication, because I just don't think they have that right now.
Sure.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I mean, it's tough because you want them to succeed streaming scrims because that's best for the content. But at the end of the day, I think your point precisely on how much percentage are you focused on practice is such a key point, because those final 10 or 20% of focus points, if you want to look at it like that, make all the difference. Just those extra little pieces of, okay, yeah, what are the objectives of this map? And that's the thing, I do feel bad for Sender. I listened to him teaching or, telling things to those guys, and then does he get a response? Are they looking at the chat? These types of things. I think even maybe Asti's mentioned it last year when he was on the Huntsman, that it was hurting their practice to a degree. And I can totally get it. And at the end of the day, whether that causes you to not win a single map on a week, that's a bigger problem. And I think what you were getting at as well, in terms of having a spark, it's the fact that not only are these little mistakes and the lack of composure, but also there's no superstar, right? There's no one actually taking over a game. That's what Dashi was doing earlier on. Right now, I mean, this week he had, I think, the lowest draft bar fantasy points of any team, of any player that's had so far this season. He had 32 points or something in a week. Because first series he went 0.6 KD, and second series he went 0.7 KD, or whatever it was. So not pretty, right? And there's been questions. I mean, Octane was mentioned last night on the flank, without the XM4, without this kind of do-it-all weapon, he's, struggling, right? And look, we're going to talk about potential meta changes in a few minutes here. Maybe that'll help rejuvenate him, but it almost feels like OpTic are praying for something like an FFAR to come back in the meta so Dashi can actually, be good again or be a star, because clearly on this current meta it doesn't seem to be working. And he was such a crucial part of their success early on, dropping massive numbers, and now that's not even there. The team's actually looking, even in terms of slaying power and in terms of talent, it's not looking spectacular, is it, Austin? Really?
I mean, I'm gonna be real. Chris kind of touched on it on his podcast and the hard points. If your objective in practice isn't to get better and to learn, you might as well just not practice, because you're not getting anything from it. So at the beginning of the season, we had our stint where we were just trying to win 8 maps and blow people out of the water, and we weren't really taking anything from the wins. Or I think OpTic might be into that rhythm that we were, and I just think they just need to actually focus on practice and getting better, because I don't care how talented you are if you're not working hard. The hardworking player is going to beat you, because at the top level right now, everyone shoots straight, and the only thing that gets the difference maker between team A and team B is who is working harder in practice, and that's pretty much it. Everyone in this league can shoot against each other. The worst player in the league is closer to the simp than you are to that player. Let's just be real. Fire has the worst KD in the league right now, and he is still disgusting. And that's literally what it comes down to, is your motivation to get better every day, which is why we're doing so good right now, is because literally we come into each practice so hungry. I don't know where how, but it's just I wonder if OpTic's having that motivational struggles in practice, which led to this week.
That would make sense, because OpTic obviously came off of stage 1 where they didn't quite get the result they wanted. And then you guys completely dominated and are yet to lose a series apart from the Kickoff Classic. You guys are completely dominating. So it's every day you get on, it's back to the grind, back to dominating, and enjoying the process. Whereas OpTic, if they're getting minced in scrims and they get minced in their series, of course it's just going to drop the vibes off and they're going to play worse and worse. It's kind of what's the saying? Oh, don't worry, snowball effect. But we were talking about the meta change last week, and we were saying what teams you think are you're gonna be impacted the most, and we were kind of going back and forth and thinking no one, but I think we know now that it is OpTic that have taken the biggest hit from this. I know it's still only 2 weeks in, but as it looks like they're the ones that have actually taken a large hit from it.
It's interesting because on paper, I thought it should have been good, especially with the map pool changes as well. It seemed good on paper, but it clearly isn't working out. And yeah, as you say, craziness. I don't I don't want to read into this. I don't really know what the plan is because this next week they play Seattle and then they play Dallas, right? The two teams which I think are still top of the pool right now, technically. Or actually, Florida are technically second, but like Seattle are actually top of the pool. We'll get into them in a second. But like if anything, Chicago, their two matches next week are like even harder than the matches they've just played. And they're going to have a massive turnaround here, or like there are legit questions around like if they lose to Seattle and they lose to Dallas and they go out of the major early, like can this team stick? Don't know. That's a question. As much as I'm sure they want to.
That's all they need. They just need what happened to us. There's a culture shift in practice. You know, our kick in the ass was losing to Florida in the preseason. Like this should be their kick in the ass, and like they should be practicing this week with this new energy of like we have to prove ourselves, and they should be coming out with a fire. I don't know if they'll beat Dallas or Seattle, but they should come out at least like with a passion that maybe was missing last week.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's the thing with FaZe as well. Like you guys are in such a nice spot in the sense that you haven't lost a series yet. So it's like every day you're just trying to keep the streak going, which is, well, a scary sight for the opposition. Let's talk about, who FaZe played later on then, that being Thieves. We'll get into that match in a second. Firstly, they play London, right? So they bring in Venom. We've just seen Standy completely world star OpTic the day prior. And Venom comes in, there's kind of expectations he's going to do a similar thing. That's not always how it works. This team certainly has a slow start. London looking much improved. It's great to see. I mean, like Dylan has been such a, up and down, but mostly down player this last season since his dominant runs that he had back in Black Ops 4. And it's so great to see, from my perspective, at least as a UK fan, that bringing Zed back into this team alongside Dylan, both of them look so good, which is like they play off each other so well. They constantly trade in gunfights up in your face. Reminds me of Simp and Abeezy a bit sometimes, the way they're trading around the map. I suppose not as talented gun skill wise, but it's tough to beat against Simp and Abeezy, right? But like that has, I think, really been a turnaround point for their team. And then you've got Shawnee, who was actually kind of one of their standouts early on. He doesn't have to do that much anymore because you've got Paul X running around lighting the world on fire. They play Thieves. It's a 3-1 in the end. London felt like they, the final map was pretty close. The game 1, probably London should have closed it out, but they choked the checkmate. And then the game 4, kind of the other way round, that London won it at the end. And you could argue that Thieves should have rotated a bit earlier to that final hill in the Moscow. So, any which way you look at it, London were the better team in this series. Thieves fall short, and okay, you can chalk that up to first series in as a team. It's understandable. Then they play FaZe, and like I can imagine, given some of the smack talk that went down between like Sasha and Kenny versus Celium and the Snake and stuff, that you guys kind of wanted. It was pretty clear that you wanted to send a message right here, especially into that final map. I mean, the game number 1, obviously the restarts happened, and you basically beat them 3 times on Garrison Hardpoint. And then the control was like I actually had to watch it back again because I don't think I've ever seen anything so humiliating. But it's like 17-1. Simp's got the Diamatti out going for like trick shots. And then Venom gets assassinated for the final kill. Like, actually just hilarious how much better FaZe are than everyone else. That they're running around trick-shotting for final kills. By the time we went to the cameras, Slash already upped and left. So, man, I don't know, Austin. I'm sure that was a fun series for you guys. I want to know what the comms sounded like for that one. It was fun to watch. I don't think it was fun to play for Thieves.
Yeah, honestly, so I'll touch on London real quick because it kind of goes in the LAT. So London brings in Paul and Zed, who are like very happy and energetic. Like if you ever talk to Zed, he was on our podcast before. He's a very like just high energy guy. He's like one of those guys that like in traditional sports, they're like those guys you want in the locker room because it just improves it so much. And it's just like ASIM. It's just like Alec for us. It's just like kind of like how Hook is, I think, for Dallas. Like those guys are just high energy, happy. They're bringing like good vibes, which does more than you think, honestly. I know this London team was really down on themselves. They were really beating themselves up. They were really stressed out. They were just beat, And Zed and Paul come in with this infectious energy, this happiness, and it improves the comms, which improves the gameplay so much more than you would think. And that's the thing I think Toronto is also missing. It's just like one of those guys who improve the energy. But London has that. They found that, and look how much better they are. Technically, they could still get the first seed if they win out, which is absolutely insane to me. And then you got LA, who they don't look happy ever. They don't look like they're having fun playing the game, even when they're winning. You bring out Temp, you put in Venom, which is one of those guys who is just so happy to be there. He is just this burst of energy, but for some reason, I don't know if it's the other three. I don't know what, but I mean, a hot take here is honestly, I think they need to take Kenny and Venom and kind of reset, and maybe look for a trade to just change the culture. I don't know what you do. I don't know because you need to reset the culture. You need to reset like the energy, and because this team is so stacked with talent, they should not be getting blown out like this. And the loss to us, so be it. We were really motivated for that series. The chances they were going to win that were pretty slim with like what our guys wanted to do that series. But the London one is pretty inexcusable to not even be more competitive there. So, I mean, it's just tough. I think the future's murky for this group 4. I don't know, guys. Do you think roster change or give it time?
I think if they keep performing this poorly for the rest of the stage, and they don't, find a little spark before the major or after, then yeah, they might have to. But who would they bring in? Is the point. Like, there's so many players that keep getting brought up. The best players from the challenges are already in the league now, and it's like, who are they going to put in there? Slash is one of the best players of all time. TJ Haley on his day is great. I think I don't want to pick a player to drop or to talk about roster changes, but anyway, they definitely need something. And it's crazy the fact that they can't even compete with the top teams. Their expectations coming into this year was to be a top team, especially from Nadeshot's perspective. And he was talking about how he wouldn't accept anything less. And then I was looking at the players and I was like, these guys last year were bottom or top 8 at best, I didn't really think that they would just come back next year suddenly, 100 Thieves, they're going to be the best team in the game. And so I don't know. I think they just need a few changes. Hopefully, I mean, they were also one of the teams that I think suffered most from XM4 change, because they were actually quite good at the start of stage 1. They thought that they weren't good, which is why they got rid of Temp. But since dropping Temp, they've looked even worse. So I don't know.
Impressive, yeah.
Yeah, I think that change kind of made the players realize, oh, no, we aren't as good as we thought. We're struggling quite a bit. They bring in Venom, thought it would make a big change, and then it didn't. They were trying to follow the formula that most other teams have tried this year, but most of the teams have actually succeeded in bringing in their players, like Standy. Who else has come in? Oh, Paul, obviously.
Yeah, London, of course.
Their first game together. All these other players that are actually showing up. Neptune's another one, but he didn't come in halfway through the league. But yeah, they were looking for that secret formula, and it didn't quite work for them.
It's weird because the 2 lowest KDs right now in stage 2 are 2 rookies. And I don't think this is Venom's fault. He's super talented. I think he should slot in. I just think if Kenny can run a sub, big name out there right now is Major Maniac. And I talk about the infectious energy, and a lot of people don't know it because he doesn't stream or make videos a lot, but he is a very positive guy. He's very vocal. I would love to see him slot into here as maybe a main AR or flex, either one, because I think he would improve the energy, and he's really talented to begin with, and he's on the bench right now. So I don't know. Maybe if in a hypothetical world where you're just making roster changes to make roster changes, a Mike for Slasher trade.
How mental is that to consider?
It might not be bad, and then because
exactly.
I don't know. I
don't
think
what are you
that's
trying
horrible.
to achieve with that? What does that? On paper, what does that change?
That makes Mike your main AR.
Yeah.
I think Slasher is a very he's a great leader, and he has a system, but maybe that system is just too much on the other, because you have experience here, and they always look so defeated. So maybe a refreshed system of new energy and a new leader in there might help the starting 4 there. So having Mike be maybe that IGL and the main AR, and then have Kenny as your flex, Venom, and maybe I don't know, or maybe have Slasher run the flex, because he's super talented. He could probably do that, and then have Venom and Kenny run the subs, and then have Mike be your main. And I don't know. This is something has to change. I don't know.
No, but I think you're right though. Like about this core three, like Slasher, TJ, and Kenny. If we went back to LAN tomorrow, I feel like Slasher's vibes would just be through the roof. Like we're back, baby.
Exactly.
We're coming top three. Like Slasher's just straight up LAN player. But given that's not happening yet, I don't think this core three works. But I don't like Kenny. Clearly, isn't the issue. He's been great. He's really talented, and I feel like dropping TJ for Draza or something, I don't really think actually changes anything at all. Like TJ's actually been pretty good. Might not have had the best couple of series. So therefore you're looking at the trio and you're being like, all right, well, what is Slasher's role in this? And I think you make a good point, right? A lot of the teams have that guy who has that like infectious positivity. And if there's one thing that Thieves lack right now among many, it is any positivity at all. Like, it just, the last couple of seasons, it's been like that. Last season, it was like that as well. They had to make big changes to make anything happen last season. And maybe it's the same here, right? Like, imagine, look, Modog is a good GM. I'm sure JCap, I'm sure they're chatting about it, right? Because this is unacceptable. They're 1-3. They play LAG next. If they win that, they're 2-3. They're still going to losers. Almost guaranteed. I'm pretty sure it's guaranteed they go to losers. So that's not what you want to see, of course. And therefore, like, they're having questions, right? Like, if Slasher gets benched, like, in a world where that happens, that's got to be the biggest wake-up call from ever, right? Because he wants to be the franchise player for this team. Like, he wants to be the guy who's here for until the end of his career. And if we went back to LAN tomorrow, I'm confident that's the case. But, man, big questions. I really don't know how you fix this, to be honest. Good luck to the guys.
Might I mention Saints Nardo?
A good, deserving of a mention. I think like people have been talking about him going to Paris just because he mates with Classic, and obviously Fire hasn't been performing great.
I want to see him on we haven't seen him on like a top team since LG in 2017.
Yeah,
he went to Echo Fox, and I want to see him on like a winning team where he has players around him that benefit him. Like seeing him in NYSL Academy, like it's great to see him winning constantly and like being one of the top players in challenges because he's proving himself again. And I feel like previous to him not being on a top team, so before he went to Echo Fox, he was considered one of the best players in the whole league for like 5 years. So I don't know. I think he deserves a chance somewhere.
I guess what we can do now then is switch over to Paris, since the rumor mill is going with Saints to Paris right now.
Go on.
So they had kind of a rough week. They were kind of, this team for me is kind of weird because the expectations going into the season weren't that high, and then they had this great stage one where they had all the momentum, and now they're kind of falling down. So I feel like because they started off so hot, the expectations now have risen so high that having this bad week is now saying roster changes. And I feel like if they didn't have that stage one, you're probably not on the hot seat as much, but now that's where we are. So what do you guys think their issue is as a collective, four?
Man, it's tough to say. Like, I think Aqua's great. Like, genuinely, just to look, obviously, statistics don't tell the whole story. I do always find it quite entertaining. You listen to the flank or when the pros chat about stuff, and the one sentence they'll be talking about how stats don't mean anything, and then the next one they're talking about how a player's underperforming just based on the stats. So, like, stats are always used just to serve a narrative, whatever the narrative happens to be on the time. But that is the narrative about Fire, right? And you're looking at the team and you're saying, okay, Aqua honestly looks so good with the main. Scraps looks better on this kind of flex role, but you've got to ask the question, okay, is Fire better suited in that role and Scraps back on the sub? But I don't really think that's the solution. And Classic is a solid player. Like, he puts up decent numbers. He's clearly a valid member of their team, but they just don't have like a superstar Slayer talent in one of the SMG roles, which I feel like they kind of need. So to me, I think that this change, like Fire out, Saints in it, that is the move. It makes sense. I think that it's a logical one. I think it's probably something you should try, because at the end of the day, even if you are Paris, and yes, they had a pretty good stage one, they looked pretty good. Like, if I'm the GM of any team, I'm like, all right, what can we do realistically to actually try and win a championship here? And this lineup clearly isn't going to cut it. And who knows, right? Like that they were competitive with FaZe before. Clearly, some of the core members of this team are very talented and kind of putting it together. So personally, I think you just pull the trigger and you make the move and you see what happens. Because Fire, he might not be in the ideal like role for him or what he's playing right now, but there's no denying that he hasn't had any particular standout series, which makes me think that he should, be uncuttable, right? Like you got to try and make some moves. That's my take, at least, Lion.
So, Lion, let me lead into this for you real quick. So, like Minnesota, right? We had really bad roles. They were all kind of jumbled up. They only had one true SMG. Are you seeing shades of Minnesota in this core lineup right now?
Do you mean the Florida previous to the change?
No, Minnesota. So Minnesota had a lot of AR heavy players. Are you seeing that kind of? Is that the issue we're seeing with this?
That is what it seems like, because if I look at their roles, so it's like, actually, yes, the only real SMG player is Classic, and then Fire's that full. Oh no, Scraps has been that SMG flex as well. They kind of just keep like like moving roles and not knowing what they are. Like, especially stage 1, Scraps and Fire swapped roles. So Scraps was on the SMG, and then he became the flex for stage 2, and then Fire moved to the SMG as well. So it's just, I think you're right. They definitely need like a standy type player to come straight in, and that's why I think Saints would be perfect as well for this team. But I don't know who to take out. I wouldn't take out Aqua. You can't really take out Classic because he's that other SMG, but he hasn't been playing great, but he hasn't been terrible either. Fire's the only one that seems quite obvious to not be playing at their potential right now. But I don't want to see a rookie get dropped after like 10 matches, But
let me ask you guys this then. We have not ever seen this in Call of Duty since Seattle did for about 2 weeks. Let me read off to you guys Fire and Respawns, and then Fire and S&D. So in Hardpoint, 0.8, 0.55, 0.88, 0.8, 0.5, 0.48. In Control, 1.46, that's his best respawn game ever. A 0.48, a 0.5, and a 0.6. Okay? Horrible.
Tough reading.
Horrible. Now let's look at his S&D. A 1.43, a 1.4 or 1.67, 2.67, and a 0.83. Way better at S&D. He's obviously not. He first off, he's not comfortable in his role. Second off, I don't know if he's ready for professional respawn. As harsh as that sounds, I don't know if he's at. I'm sure he's at that level where he's right on the fringe. But like, if you're Paris, do you look at putting in Saints for respawns and maybe keep Fire in for S&D and see if he improves? Because that's something we haven't seen. But
I like the idea, like, kind of.
Because Fire is really talented. He's super talented. I like the guy. I've like talked to him. I have like DM'd him a couple times. I feel like energy really high. He's a really good kid. He's really down on himself right now. It's almost like he lacks the confidence. So if he keeps in the S&Ds and continues playing very, very well, because I think he's an awesome S&D player, maybe he can regain that confidence and be an asset for you in respawns down the line. And Saints is, ridiculously talented in respawns. He's always put up great numbers. Do you see where that might work? I kind of like it on paper.
For sure, because on paper as well, it doesn't really matter what the roles are in S&D. So that would work perfectly with that team. But then having that second SMG might be perfect for the way that their team is, dynamically.
It's interesting take. I like it in theory. I do wonder because it's not like Paris have been great in search, even with Fire dropping numbers, right? So you do have to wonder whether how much impact those kills are having on the map. But I agree with you, right? Like the idea that you bring in a rookie just to drop him a couple of months into the season seems a bit tough. So actually utilizing them somehow on the sub bench would probably be a better thing to try, because a lot of people go to the bench and then it's just chalked, right? Like good luck getting back into the league. We saw it with Spart last season, for example, on LAG. Like he has a tough time, gets dropped, and then has to fight his way through the pit. Yeah, Lion, you good? What's happening?
Torrential rain. Like, can you hear that?
yeah, we can. That's funny. Right. Come out of nowhere.
That New Zealand weather.
Yeah, it's striking again.
Like that. Like, honestly, it's probably about to stop raining.
I thought you'd seen a spider or something.
It sounds like it stopped.
Whoa! I think it's done.
Oh, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's all good. I think pretty much finished up discussing Paris. I wanted to touch on Seattle as well, though, because they beat Paris 3-0 them, comfortable. Great to see. I'm really happy to see the competition in the league right now. Like the fact that Seattle looking good, the fact that Minnesota are better, Florida beat OpTic. Like there's a lot in London, of course. There's a lot to look at here and say, wow, this may just going to be like insane. And FaZe might still win comfortably, but the battle for second is going to be insane, certainly. But I mean, Octane had a really great week. Pristini, Looney did his thing as he does. Pristini is actually, obviously there's some inconsistency there, but when he's on, he's putting up big numbers, and the AR support has actually arrived. Like at the start of the season, it was like, okay, we can kind of accept Looney and Pristini not slaying crazy because we have Gunners and Octane. And finally, we're seeing Gunners just pop 1.6s, Octane put up 1.3s, and you're going to be really tough to beat when that's the case. So happy to see Seattle looking good. They're top of their pool right now. Next week they play up against OpTic, and they play as well Minnesota. So not the easiest time, but I think they can give a decent run. I mean, they were game 5 round 11 away from being 3-0 in this pool when they lost to Dallas, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting dynamic that I kind of saw appearing this week for Seattle is Gunless on the SMG. Looked really good.
Yeah.
And
PPSH, man, I'm telling you, from what's
yeah,
it's just the same gun.
You can win most series with a player dropping a 0.9 in Looney, right? Because he's still making those smart plays on the map. You saw a nice S&D clutch on Miami. He's not like he's not doing anything impactful on the map. He's still bringing those intangibles. So I kind of still like him on the lineup, even though individually his skill might not be on the same like all-star level as some of the SMG duos. But Gunless on the SMG and Prestini kind of flexing back and forth. This lineup's really scary. It helps them on a lot of maps when they're able to have 3 players on an SMG, kind of like on Apocalypse or Garrison for some hills. Like you can play around with a lot of stuff. Makes them more dangerous in control too. So definitely a team to look out for. It was a team that we have been waiting for 2 years to arrive, and when they finally did, you're starting to see it. And a nice thing for me is even in their close losses, it's not that bad anymore. You're starting to see that consistency. Prestini's starting to gain back that momentum. I know he no longer has internet issues, so that is a huge plus. It brings up his motivation and his confidence, which every time he has confidence, you're going to see this insane gameplay. So I'm super excited. Lion, what do you expect for the next 2 matchups?
Well, what are the next 2 matches?
Chicago and Minnesota. Which now, when I look at those, I see beatable. Winnable.
I think OpTic
they play
at the
OpTic
moment
first
is
as well, right? So...
Yeah, OpTic's very vulnerable, and it would be the complete dagger if OpTic lost to Seattle. Like thinking about stage 1 and like how much better they were, and then coming into now, that would be terrible for their vibes. So I hope that match is close. If it's not, then eesh. And then Minnesota, I think they're looking very good at the moment, so that will be a tough series. But I think that will be the absolute test for them to see where they're at performance-wise, because we know where Minnesota is at. Seattle, we're still kind of unsure because they've only played 3 matches at this sort of potential. The changes Pristini to the internet issues, like fixing those, was key because now he's because of the internet, he's like one of the top players, especially in that team. He's really like a huge asset. What I've been waiting for, though, for the last 2 years is to create a card for Pristini that actually is like good, and so he doesn't hate me, because me and him get along like quite well. And every time I bring out cards, it's just like me completely torching him. And Alec will reply like, "Why are you roasting him?" I'm like, "I'm not. I'm just putting his stats on a card, please." So, yeah, that's what I'm excited to do, because I know that might actually be really good for once.
The matchup of the entire stage, this is going to sound so weird because you would never expect it, is actually Minnesota versus Seattle. Because if Minnesota loses, they start in losers, even after beating Chicago and Dallas, because they would be 2 and 3. And Seattle would potentially still be in the running to have the number 1 seed in the double bye, which would be insane considering the night and day we've seen from them in the 2 stages. And then also, we've been talking kind of about vibes this entire episode, where like if you have good vibes, it kind of helps with practice. I don't know if you guys saw Octane's tweet. It was kind of like a monkey off his back. He's actually like so excited to win, and he's happy. And I think that is like the snowball effect you want. That's like the opposite of what's happening in Chicago right now. Yeah. And like it makes this team just so scary. it's so scary when they're finally gaining confidence, which has seemed like they have not been doing for literally 16 months now. Is like gaining confidence at any point.
Yeah, it's just really good to see.
Absolutely.
Like, they don't have any of those new players on that team, and yet they're finally finding their potential. Like, they don't need to bring in a rookie to fix all their issues. They can just fix all their stuff internally, move to different areas of the country to find the best thing that works, especially with Pristine or the internet. And it's actually like, you can see it's working. And it's great to see, because I like those guys a lot, and they deserve to be, in the running.
They're a fun team to watch, man. Like, especially Gunless. I've missed watching Gunless like absolutely destroy people.
So good.
It's been long enough. And as you say, like the confidence that seems to be back now, especially from Octane's side, because he's had a tough run obviously after these last couple of years. Their team, like, I can't imagine being in practice with that team last season. Should have been absolute shambles, I'm sure. At this time, seems like they're getting there. So hope the upward trajectory continues, because they're an exciting team and they can put up a good fight. So I'm pretty sure that pretty much rounds us out for the discussion on the matches for last week. Let's talk certainly about this patch, which has just gone live then. So there's a number of changes here, and there's honestly so much to cover, like the potential snaking nerf. We've got the changes to league play as well, where now so overkill has been banned effectively. Like, Lawbreaker can only be used, like the pros use it to just have an extra perk. They've also got rid of perk greed, so basically you're just using pro GAs, and they've also added some sort of leaving penalty, whatever that happens to be. The patch will be live by the time this podcast comes out, so maybe it will be effective, maybe it won't be, who really knows. But the major things really are these weapon changes, I think. So they made a couple of map tweaks as well, maybe we can get into those, but these weapon meta changes could be really significant. So there's a 74U nerf. I mean, we can go into the details here, but the 74U, of course, dominant weapon in the game, that's been nerfed in terms of its bullet velocity and also its recoil after the first few shots have been fired. So that could be pretty significant. We're seeing the FFAR get buffed somewhat. We're seeing the Milano get buffed pretty significantly, it seems. And you've got to wonder, right? Like, yes, we're going to be playing on this patch still through the rest of Stage 2, but come Stage 3 time, we can certainly see a world in which the meta that we're using is very different to now. And I think there's many questions what it even looks like, right? Because so many weapons could be viable. Even the Groza, some people were talking about with the buff that's had, that could be viable in terms of an AR line, Austin. I don't really know what to make of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see an SMG switch, but not an AR. The Krieg's actually receiving a small buff, I believe. And the Krieg has already been the number one AR on 60 hertz, because on 60 hertz the bullets land, like bullet reg is better. So ARs, and especially with the maps this year, ARs reign king. So you're going to definitely see the Krieg be the main AR. For the SMG, I'm actually super interested, and I'm going to be testing this out. It drops in 8 hours, just under 8 hours for me. So I'm going to be testing the Milano, AK-74U, and the MP5. Those ones all look like they're going to be in the running. I personally want the Milano. I think that's going to be so fun if that's like the, I believe it was the beta or the alpha. The Milano was just running shop. So I'm super excited, because it's like every time our team does well, there's always something that helps us find the motivation or like reinvigorates us. So it's like, this patch is going to be like an all-new learning experience, which our team loves to do. So it's like, it's so nice to have again.
Yeah, well, if we're going to talk about league play real quick, the changes to league play, I saw some guy talking about the changes on Twitter, and he was just talking about how he hates it. That's like a 2-gun meta, and that you can't run overkill, and that it follows a competitive rule set, and all these GAs and stuff. I'm like, dude, it's competitive. That's how it's meant to be. If you have a different rule set to the competitive players, it doesn't match up. You're not going to enjoy watching it because it's different. And so having it the same allows for growth in the league and in ranked play. Like, it's cohesive. But pub players don't like the way that it's changing more towards competitive, which is ridiculous, because that's how it should be. Like every other game, they have rule sets and the way that they are played just so that it matches up, and you can like make the step up if you want to play in like certain leagues and stuff. But whatever, that just annoyed me, seeing a public player's perspective on that sort of stuff. But anyway, the gun changes to me, I don't really have any opinion on it. I just want to see how they work, and then probably within the first week we'll find out what works. Austin by tomorrow will probably know, and he'll let us know, posting all those different graphics to see where things are being buffed and nerfed, etc. So yeah, I hope the Milano as well, because it does remind me quite a lot of the MSMC, just the way it looks. It's like that Uzi looking gun. So
it's the way it looks. We'll see. All the butters.
Yeah, and then the Krieg's obviously going to be the AR. Like, that's not going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more interested in the map changes. There was a bunch of spawn changes, control point changes. The way control is actually being played. For those of you who haven't seen the patch notes yet, in control, it's going to be changing for one, how round 5 is decided, and two, the time situation. So we actually won't see this in competitive play for another like 2 to 3 weeks. But for league play, when you capture a tier on offense and control now, you will get 20 seconds on the clock. When you capture all 3 of them, you get the 60 seconds. Instead of when you capture the complete point, you get the 60 seconds. So that's how they're going to change it. So you get rewarded per tick. And then for round 5, how that's going to be decided is how many ticks you have captured as a team. So if you've captured 9 and the other team only captured 8, you will have defense on round 5. So great changes. Those are fantastic. Will definitely help with control. The tick per 20 seconds is going to help offense, which is a major issue with control right now on Garrison and Checkmate. So great changes there. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, I think that's been a heavily requested thing for control this year.
Awesome, man. Couldn't be happier with that one. That's my personal take. Just because it's just nice to see some reception, right? Like from the developers, the idea that the pros have requested a change and they think, okay, like offense is too good or too bad on certain maps. What can we do to fix it? Merc comes up with this idea. They discuss it behind the scenes, and well, it gets implemented into the game, at least for practice in terms of league play first. Great stuff. They've also, it says on Garrison, extended Zone 8 up to the platform outside of Green Room. So it seems to be a pretty big change to me. Like the Zone A, which is the harder one to cap on Garrison, you're now going to be able to capture that from as soon as you leave Green on that little platform and where the stairs are. You can capture it there, which means you can hide in that corner and still cap it. That's probably going to make it easier to do as well. So we're probably going to see a lot more competitive control maps when this comes into play. And it just makes me really, grateful, to be honest, for the guys over at Treyarch actually responding to feedback and getting this stuff out and actually showing some love for competitive. Like, we know that Matt Sconce and the guys actually watch competitive and care about it. So it's good to see part of that coming to fruition, right? And I think it is going to improve the viewer experience. Fine.
Yeah, I just really hope it improves Checkmate control, because that map is still trash. Like, it's
got a bit better, I think.
No, it has. Like, especially in the OpTic series, like seeing teams cap on offense, and like it has moments, and when those moments do happen, it's really, really entertaining because you don't expect them. But I don't want to go into a series knowing that it's going to be 3 checkmates in a row. I have to sit through that. I've posted it twice on social media, just like checkmate 3 times, and that pops off because everyone agrees how trash it is. So I hope that this makes that map kind of fun to watch. But the changes in general are really good. We were talking about these changes like way back in like our first couple podcasts. I think the only change that hasn't been made about control was the lives. Like, we wanted there to be like 4 less lives or something, but I don't think that really matters.
Oh yeah, that was discussed early on, right?
Yeah, because I think it's actually like a really good balance between time, objective, and kills at the moment. Whereas when you look back to Black Ops 4, it was far more kills based. It was almost just like S&D with 30 lives, and then there's these 2 objectives that you can.
Good point, actually.
Yeah. And so this year, I like the pacing is a lot better. And so I've enjoyed control this year, and so having them updating it, making it slightly better. I think having the ticks makes that good, because you can go back and forth and kind of rock on this one and go to that one, and then kind of make all these different tactics that like allow you to get certain time to like bait and switch the sites even. So I do like that, and I think. Austin, I needed to ask you a question. I replied to COD Gamepedia about this, but I didn't get a reply. If everyone has the same ticks, the 2 teams, does it just go based on who had offense last gets defense in the round 5?
I'm honestly not sure, because that wasn't in the patch notes. So It will be live on League Play tonight. That's what one of the devs said. So that would be probably one of the first things I try to see. Maybe in a private match, I can turn it on and then just see through that way. But definitely a good thing. Great changes all around, pretty much.
Yeah, it's
The only
awesome.
thing we need is flinch on snipers, man.
Yeah,
Flinch
that's
on
actually a good
snipers.
point. And they buffed the 1911. I saw your tweet about that. Don't know why.
Why is snipers not being fixed yet, or smokes? Like, that should have been priority at the start of the league. They should have had that ready for stage 2. Smokes are fixed, and why aren't snipers in the game?
No, because snipers weren't out of the game because of the smoke. Snipers were out of the game because my grandmother could snipe like simp right now. Because 1, there's aim assist, and 2, there's no flinch. So it's
why are there no smokes?
The smokes, I think they worked mostly fixed. There's still some issues, but they will be back in for S&D hopefully in the near future if they can just fix the final parts. Maybe I'm not sure, but we need smokes in S&D because like. I know a lot of teams, I heard this on the flank, like they were talking about it. A lot of teams actually like checkmate S&D and a lot of teams prefer checkmate control over garrison control. And like if we don't have smokes, I don't know if I can watch another checkmate. I don't like the map. So maybe smokes and snipers would help it.
Smokes is going to make checkmate so confusing though. Like, think about the map and, like, the lanes and the different gunfights you get into on that map. Imagine smoking bottom of plane, like, under plane. Like, then suddenly there's no line of sight anywhere.
Smoke in the plane, baby, like league
smoke in the plane and under the plane.
Get the bomb down. Beautiful.
My hot take is S&D is actually better without smokes.
Interesting.
I don't know.
It might be true on these maps, but I don't think it's true on every map.
Yeah. Smokes aren't used like they used to be. A lot of times people just smoke their feet or they smoke it to make it mixy. I feel like that isn't S&D. I feel like that's just you're just trying to make a random play where you just get good timings. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. Like, I have enjoyed S&D this year without smokes, but I also see the tactical side of having smokes in the game and being able to utilize everything that's to your disposal. And smokes have always been such a big part of COD. And a big part of competitive FPSs. So I think it kind of needs to be in the game just for the sake of an FPS title and having that ability to do so. You know?
I'd like to see him back in if possible. At least try it, right? Like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it's what it is.
I think
bring them touch as well. Go on that before we go on.
I just think they should bring smokes and snipers back together in the rule set when they're both viable and able to be used.
Let me ask you a question then. Let's say standoff arrives for stage 3.
Yep.
What maps do you take out for each mode?
Checkmate.
Fell for all 3?
All 3?
Yeah.
2. Yeah. Okay, let me think.
Because this is not going to be as black and white as you think it is. I think because I think there's going to be a pretty even split on a lot of the modes, just based off what I heard on like Tommy's show. Like, because they had Octane and they had ASIM, and both of them said they would rather have Garrison out. What?
I don't think for hardpoint. I think Garrison hardpoint's entertaining. Checkmate hardpoint is just it's fine, but it's AR dominated, and it's just weird to me. I've never liked it. S&D is okay. Checkmate S&D. Checkmate control is like bad 90% of the time. So I think if we were going to go with multiple maps, I would say Checkmate, Hardpoint, and Control out, and then Garrison S&D. But Garrison S&D is out already.
It's out, yeah. Well, then, I think for S&D, it's a battle between Miami and Checkmate. Obviously, I think Miami's way better than Checkmate. Yeah. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
No, for sure. And I like the versatility you can do on that map. Like, you can actually create different routes that rather than just hitting a site, you can go around different areas, and rather than hitting a plane, there's multiple things you can do. There's better timings. It's more random as well, which I like. But anyway, continue. Oh, I'm in 360p.
You are a little bit.
I can't even hear anything.
I think it's okay.
Whatever.
Okay,
my one last
okay.
question for you guys. My one last question.
I was going to give my take. Come on, Austin. I was going to give my take.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
Let's hear it, and then I'll add it in.
Nothing's mate. I'm just interested because Garrison hardpoint from the hardpoint side, a couple of those hardpoints I don't particularly like actually, and I actually think Checkmate might be a better hardpoint map than Garrison. I think Moscow's okay. I think Moscow should stay. I don't like it that much, but I think it's probably good enough. Whereas so if Standoff was to come in terms of control, again, it's a battle between those two maps. I think that with these new Garrison changes, it might actually be a lot more interesting. To the point, and just the way Checkmate is as a map, I do agree with, like, I think both your guys' takes, and like the way the playing works and the way it's set up is just, it's just nowhere near Standoff. Whereas at least Garrison in some of the respawns, the fact that it's only 2 lanes doesn't matter so much. And in terms of Search, getting Checkmate out is a no-brainer. But I feel like in Hardpoint, maybe I would vote to keep Checkmate, because I actually think it's quite nice for that mode. But that might just be me.
Another thing
I think go for it.
Another thing is we have Miami Strike coming in, which
I was just about to say that.
the mini map that they released the video on actually looks pretty good. It's not just a smaller version of Miami. It's like a completely redone Miami that's small. And there could be some potential there. If we have that, you also have Apocalypse S&D that's not in, and you could have more DLCs, Fire and Range, Jungle, Standoff down the line. Like, I am completely okay with a revolving door on the map pool, because it keeps it refreshing. It keeps it so your teams are also constantly learning stuff. It's not getting stagnant. You're not getting complacent. Are you guys okay with like a revolving map pool as the season goes along? I'll start with you, Lion.
Yes, no, I think that would be fine. And like, especially if the maps that are coming in also come with these old maps that just, like, if we think about S&D on Express, it's actually been extremely entertaining. Like, it's not been bad. It's been better than Checkmate. It's been better than Garrison. And also Raid has just been a complete success as well in every game mode. Having these other maps like Standoff coming in would be great, and then testing these other maps slowly, like not putting them in for all 3 game modes, but just seeing how Miami Strike would work in Hardpoint. Wow, my monitor literally just turned off.
You're good. Yeah.
But yeah, I think they'll be fine, and it turned off again. So I think, yeah, Miami Strike, give it a go. If there are any other maps that look good, put them in, test it out. I really don't mind.
Miami Strike's interesting to me just because when I've looked at it, it does look incredibly small. Like they added a new path around the side of the garage. So like it's not just the one street and then the garage is on the right, but there's actually another path leading all the way around it. So it's kind of like a 3-lane when the middle lane is like the B-bomb street. So it's kind of strange. I think it's probably going to be too small to work for competitive, because Crossroads actually might be bigger than Miami Strike. I think it is. And that kind of didn't work because it was too small, but maybe the buildings will work differently. I mean, yeah, the revolving door idea is nice. I remember back in Black Ops 3, when in Search and Destroy, there were 7 maps played. Like there was Hunted, there was Evac, Breach, Fringe, Stronghold, Redwood, Infection. Wow, I've just nailed the full 7. I'm actually out of control.
Wow.
Those were the 7, and they were all in the rotation. I'm pretty sure for like maybe they got rid of Hunted at some point. I kind of forget, but like those maps were maybe they just kept all 7, right? And they just had all of them in the rotation the whole time. So I don't necessarily mind even, the revolving door idea works, but if there's enough viable maps, like I don't really have a problem just chucking in a couple more. Like, is there too much of a big deal with like 6 maps in the Hardpoint rotation or something? Yeah, that's right. You'd have to do 7.
Your vetoes, instead of doing 1-1 and then pick. You just do veto, pick. So.
Yeah, so you could go to 7 if it's viable to do so. And if they can, I'd be down. Otherwise, as you say, if there's 6 viable, then maybe you just keep switching one out every time to keep things fresh. Yeah. I mean, it's nice that we even have the opportunity to do so, because the last couple of years it's been like, well, we kind of get what we're given. But now we have some options.
It's a major highlight for me.
Yeah, I don't understand why. Oh, go.
Okay. It's a major highlight for me that we are constantly having this, because this is the exact opposite of World War II, where like you had like the same maps for 10 months, and it felt like you wanted to put your head through a monitor every time you saw Arden's Forest, and you're already like every stage. The only thing for me is as long as stage 5 is your final map pool for champs, I'm fine with stage 3 and 4 just getting mixy with it and throwing whatever you want in it, as long as it works and the pros agree. So, yeah, Lion, you can go now.
Well, all I was going to say is I don't understand why we can't have more than the maps that are in the pool, like, right now. Like, just add another map, or add another 2 at the same time, and then, we've got 2 more maps, practice them, and we can put them in the league. Like, why do we have to take one out to put one in? Do you know why?
it's more of like if one with vetoes, because like when you have 5, the vetoes work really nice, and with control you only have 3 because you veto, and then the last one standing is your pick. Also for practice, like can you imagine if we had like 7 hardpoint maps? You have like 5 control maps. That's 12 for each set. You would have 12 maps, which would be about 2.5 hours, 3 hours per practice set, which is starting to get a little absurd. So that's why they keep it at the 5 and 3, because it takes each practice set. Yeah.
In Search and Destroy, though, I'm down because Search and Destroy isn't the same way. Maybe that's why it worked in Black Ops 3. So
yeah, that's more so what I meant. Just an S&D as well. Like
S&D, I would love it.
Yeah,
it would help with the best of 9s. It would definitely help with the best of 9s in the grand finals.
I just hate seeing a triple checkmate. That's my biggest problem right now. Like a series or like a triple raid. Like I'd love raids.
Love it for some reason.
Yeah, give me 2 max in a row. I don't want to see raid for 45 minutes. Trash. I mean, it's fine. Raid's a great map, but also trash.
I feel like our map pool is like in a pretty healthy spot considering what we've had in years past. Is it great? No, but is it bad? Like there's very few maps where you're like, oh, this map again, which is I love that, but like there's still room for improvement, and it just makes me happy that we're actually looking for each DLC map, because right now we don't usually any DLC gun that comes out isn't in the meta at all, which is it's just so nice that DLC maps are now finally accepted.
Do you want to know a crazy fact? It's been 5 months and Checkmate's still in the competitive rule set.
He doesn't not let this die, does he?
It's crazy. Like, wow.
That's crazy, eh? That's a mad stat.
Mate, it's got some longevity to it. I'll give it that. That's
gotta say fair play.
My wish is that maps would only be in max 2 modes. So like you can't have raid in all 3 modes. So then like you don't get those series where it's raid or checkmate. But
exactly.
I'm hoping by stage 4 or 5 we actually have a surplus of maps, so we're a map can be in a max of 2 modes, and then we just pick the best maps for each mode off of that. So then it's not the same thing every series.
Yeah. Well, agreed. I guess with you wouldn't have to really worry about too many maps if you have like an automatic veto, I guess. So if they do keep bringing in maps, you have that veto where you don't have to really practice it, but I don't know.
Having an auto veto hurts you so much.
Of course it does.
Yeah. That's what's so nice about our map pool the last 2 seasons. We have strived. Like a lot of teams to say, oh, that's our auto veto, not practice it. That is the dumbest thing you can do in the terms of vetoes, because then, like, for instance, like I know what some teams already veto right off the rip. So then we can prep for other things, or, you game plan for the map pool beforehand. And it just shoots yourself in the foot. Unpredictability is key.
For sure.
Especially when, like, one of your best maps then gets removed from the map set, and then something else comes in, and all of a sudden, well, now I've kind of got to play my auto veto, but I haven't practiced on it for 2 months, so it's never ideal.
Austin, do teams, I know that you have that massive doc that's like every single team and all the stats and stuff.
Yeah.
Do other teams have that? Because if they didn't, you have such an advantage. It's insane.
What do you mean? So like,
your doc, not your doc. I mean, the team doc. Like,
so there is something like small that each team gets. Like, it's not just one. Yeah, it's basically like what my my stage 2 doc that you're on right now. Pretty much just that. I use, like, obviously I keep all of the team stuff, like all my practice stuff, but anything I don't have, I actually use IOU Turtle. I use his stuff for anything I can't find.
Is that the one that doc's made off? That team stats one?
No, he made that himself. Yeah,
exactly.
A massive one. Yeah, he makes that
That's
public.
Insane.
So that's the one I use.
Oh, that's so
good.
For when I can't find anything. Yeah, it's public.
Oh, well, never mind.
Yeah, that's the one I linked you. Yeah, that's IOU Turtles. So like whenever I I track everything on my end, but like if I'm ever missing something where it's like how many times do OpTic go A, like he actually has all this stuff just for use. It's crazy. He's got so much work ethic. Shout out him.
Yeah, that's insane. I'm just looking at that now. Fair play. Yeah, publicly available. Maybe we just get a link down below. I'll chuck it in the chat. Omar, if you want
definitely.
to leave it for all the people watching to check out in the description at their own leisure. But go on, Austin.
He's really
Final
smart.
point.
Like he's going to, I just want to shout him out one more time because I love people from the community that work hard and make content. Basically, like the same route all three of us went down, and having people like him and people like Cam Allen and people like Carson and Round 11, like those guys doing so much work behind the scenes is what makes our community tick. And just keep grinding because good things happen to people that work that hard.
Oh, inspirational.
And
that's a good note to end it on. I think that sums it up nicely. So yeah, well, thanks everyone for joining us who is watching to the end. The games next week are really interesting. After the end of this week, the seeds are going to be set for the major. So I don't know how to predict it right now because OpTic and Dallas, well, not Dallas, but Los Angeles Thieves right now are sitting in the bottom part. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of chaos once again. So, and also soon after the major happens, we're then going to get all these changes we've been discussing in terms of the map set and so map changes, meta changes, I'm sure are going to be massive. So lots happening over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, hope you guys all enjoyed. Leave a like on the video, all that good stuff. Leave us a review on Spotify, and we'll be back here this time next week to discuss all the chaos which has gone down in week 3 of Stage 2 of CDL 2021. Thanks all for watching. Take care, and we will see you next time.